Whoa, Dad, go, Dad.
Hey y'all, Dave Mopper here. Welcome in. This pod is a compilation of lessons in fatherhood and leadership. I'm using it to explore the path to raising legends, and I'm sharing it all with you. Each episode provides a really raw and unique perspective on fatherhood, and it's what I've come to love about these conversations. There is something for every father who's in growth mode. All right, enjoy the combo. Mr. Steve Sundberg, welcome to Whoa Dad, Go Dad.
Good to be here, Dave. Thanks for all that you're doing in leadership and making the world a better place.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's an honor. And when I was thinking about good fathers I know with rich stories and multiple vantage points, dude, you've been on my short list for a while, and here we are. I love it. Thanks for making time.
Thanks for thinking of me.
Yeah. So let's acknowledge we got your brother, Aaron Wallace, a friend of my wife's from the Wisconsin realm, now a great friend of mine. I get to see him here in early July, which I'm looking forward to.
He's a great human being. He's a real man.
He's an absolute.
I think if you look at masculinity in the dictionary, his picture is there.
Indeed. A lumberjack, a wordsmith, an artist.
Furniture builder, timber framer.
Absolute legend.
Yeah, all that stuff. And tender guy at the same time. Rounds it out.
Yeah, absolutely. He is a very well-rounded man. Now, your background, I was thinking about all the vantages, all the perspectives you might have that are going to be really interesting for me as a young father or a fresh father, and then anyone listening. So let's give the audience a bit of context. You are an entrepreneur. I know you have a restaurant in Aurora, Colorado. You've got probably some real estate all over. And you also happen to be city councilman for the city of Aurora. So give me a day in the life of Steve Sundberg and what that entails and what your mind's on, what your heart's on. What does work look like for a man in all those positions?
Wow. Well, just some brief history. I was born in the great state of Wisconsin, since you mentioned it. About the age of 11, moved to Fort Collins, grew up there, went to CSU. Got a degree in communication to learn how to talk gooder. And was in the restaurant business, construction work, went to Africa after a little while. In my mid-20s, ended up meeting my future wife. And it was quite the journey to travel through a few different African countries to end up meeting her. And moved to the Denver, Aurora area, worked with my dad in small business. So I know the struggles of small business, know the challenges of earning a profit. And city council, I ran for city council in self-defense. The city of Aurora had always been a business partner in my estimation, just helping in business and bringing in tourism. And then suddenly they became a threat, telling me what I could and shouldn't put on a menu, a kid's menu, wanting to raise the minimum wage to the highest in the nation during COVID when we're shut down. So out of self-defense, I love Aurora. I've invested a lot in serving the community, want to see it succeed. So a parent of two incredible kids, 25-year-old gal named Olivia Joy, and 23-year-old son, Luke. And it's been rich. Fatherhood has been rich. I've made some mistakes. I've done some things the right way, I believe. And I have two wonderful kids. You know, when they walk into a room, they might meet you somewhere and you're proud that they're there. I think that says something about, in reflection of how fatherhood has gone for you. You're proud to see your kids. You're proud that people see your kids, and I am proud of them.
Yeah, that's good to know. And that's a good litmus test. It's a good way to think of it. Like in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, will my kiddo walk into a room and will I be proud that he's there? And yeah, for sure. I can see how that's a good measure.
Don't get me wrong. There have been a few moments in time where I have not been proud of the behavior of one or two of my kids. They needed some guiding for sure, the hard way.
Indeed, and we're going to get into the thick of it to a degree, and there's some lessons in all of those stories, I suspect. But I'm curious. Tell me about a little bit more on how you meet your wife, and then maybe the early days of the two of you, founding this connection and building a family. What was on your mind when it came to fatherhood? So a little bit of the history, and then your early, before you were an actual father, how were you thinking of fatherhood?
I went, in a nutshell, I went to Uganda, Africa with Habitat for Humanity
Mm,
on one of their international trips with 9 other Americans for a 3 week stay. Met a missionary there who invited me to come visit him in Zaire as he was doing some refugee work. I could never get a hold of him through shortwave radio, but I had this strong, strange desire to go see him.
mm,
And I was advised not to go because it was unstable and there were a lot of refugees there from the Rwanda genocide and just a difficult country. So I completed my amazing stay in Uganda, building homes with Habitat for Humanity and cultural diplomacy, and ended up canceling my flight at the last minute after trying to radio this guy again, and traveled the opposite way into Kenya, climbed Mount Kenya. I remember being sick as a dog, but got to the top. It was over 17,000 feet, and came back down, saw elephants in the wild, and just still had this strange feeling that I wanted to go to Zaire. And being a little bit spiritual, I was like, God, if you want me to go, you got to protect me. So I went to the Zairean embassy in Nairobi, got a visa, went across on a bus through Kenya, through Uganda, tried to radio this guy again, couldn't get a hold of him. Stayed on the border of Uganda and Zaire in a $4.50 hotel, got up at 4 in the morning and hitched a ride on a convoy of the World Food Program, which was food donated by the United States of America into Zaire to feed the Rwanda refugees. And got there, hired a translator because I was too intimidated to set foot on the street when I got to Goma, Zaire. For $10, I hired this guy, Jean Baptiste, and in 1995 was a lot of money for this guy in his situation. We went to meet his family. His wife was elated. They had $10 to buy fabric and food, and we went in search of the missionary. We found where he lived. I left him a note. He came and got me. Amazing man, third generation African missionary, living on Lake Kivu, one of the deepest freshwater lakes in the world, surrounded by volcanoes. One glowed at night, and these massive refugee camps of 300 plus thousand people, 100,000 people in one, 100,000 in another down the road. And so I visited these camps and got to see people's plight and did some construction work with this guy. And I saw death and I saw life, and it was an amazing experience. And one day he says, I should introduce you to this good looking Tootsie girl I know that manages this store downtown. I think he said it a couple times. Finally, we went to go meet her. It was this little import goods store of chocolate and things from Europe that she was managing. And she was living as a refugee with some other family members. And I was taken aback by her beauty. I spoke about 4 words of French. She spoke about 4 words of English and couldn't really connect, but she made an impression on me. I journaled about her and how lovely she was. Got back to the States. I hitchhiked out of there back to the States. Got a letter from her a month later asking if I remembered her, that she'd like to improve her English through correspondence. I was like, of course I do. Another letter was then lost in the mail. I hadn't heard from her. She sent pictures of herself looking her best. I was smitten. I couldn't stop thinking about her on a daily basis, like all day long. I could not stop thinking about this beautiful woman. Began the process of looking into getting her here through a student visa. And it takes months and months and paperwork and financial proof that you can support someone, and waited maybe 9 months and it was denied. Did a refugee visa because the situation over there was growing more unstable. War was coming back into the area. Same process, waited 9 months, hoping for approval, and denied.
mm.
And lost contact with her for a month as the war came and broke up those camps. And she resurfaced into Rwanda. I heard from her briefly, and ultimately, long story short, a fiance visa worked. Took 2.5 years to get her here, and she's an amazing human being. She came at the age of 23. At 23, she's more mature than 40-year-olds here, right? She's been through a lot in her life.
Mhm.
Beautiful, hardworking woman, great mother, great wife. So that's kind of where I am now. We have 2 kids. I would love to have had 3, but she wanted to pump the brakes at 2. So
What a beautiful love story. Wild. And I knew like an ounce of that story.
yeah,
It was
I
neat.
left out a lot of details, but it was a journey.
So there was a lot of pen pal exchange and some lost letters and so forth. But there was a point in which I'm making an assumption here because I kind of fill in the blanks. Like you had to declare a deep interest for each other beyond just the language desire for elevated language. There
Yeah,
was, so when did that happen, by the way? And
we
what,
fell in love. Yeah, we fell in love through good old fashioned correspondence.
my
Her
gosh.
sister worked for an aid organization, and in our office at the small business, the restaurant we have, there was a fax machine. It was, remember the old fashioned thermal paper? We'd fax each other. So that was the brightest part of my day, is to run to the office and pull off this fax and read how things are going for her.
Oh my
But
God.
really fell in love and had to ask her over the phone to marry me and convince the embassy over there that this was a real thing. They're like, well, you've only met this person one time and you want to marry her. And I'm like, well, yes, actually I do. So it was a struggle. It was difficult. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through in my life. You want things to happen. You want things to happen more quickly. And especially when she was lost, and I couldn't hear from her for a month, it was really a test of faith to believe that, hey, God is in this, and if this is a real desire of my heart, He's going to protect her. And sure enough, it all came through.
So give me a year when you finally get reunited. She's stateside. What year is that?
1998, she arrived on St. Patrick's Day. hmm Back when you could greet people, gather your friends and family, and greet them at the gate before all the 9/11 security. You remember
Indeed.
that?
Wow. I bet that was I mean, you've got it memorized. It was clearly a marked date in your story. What did life look like in the first couple months, first 6 months? How did I
Good
was just thinking,
question.
yeah, she's stepping into, of course, the relationship for real now.
hmm
Tangible Steve, not just ethereal.
Yeah, yeah.
And then also is our culture drastically different in from her experience? If you said she was French, had she ever been? I believe that was simply the culture in was it Zaire where you met her? And
Now called the Congo again.
yeah, okay. So give me an idea. What was her vantage and take and experience in those first couple months?
I think it was a bit overwhelming at first. There was a blizzard the next day,
Oh no.
so she got to
Yeah.
see a lot of snow. We had to get her some snow clothing, and language. People speak very quickly here. She's used to the written English word, so I think a lot of things were lost in translation. Just the quick way we speak. First time out of country for her, other than neighboring Zaire. So the amenities here, I think she was uh, pleased and enjoyed discovering technology. She'd
Mm,
never used a dishwasher before. Put the wrong detergent in and had 8 inches of suds all over the floor. Hard worker. She worked for Cost Plus, if you know the
okay.
the
Yeah.
import store. She's like the model employee with the smile and the hard work, and
Mm,
uh, she loves America. She appreciates freedom. She appreciates the checks and balances I think that we have over there. There's a guy named Kagame who's been in power ever since he rolled in from Uganda with the Rwandan Patriotic Front and secured the country. He's been in power ever since, and that's something you see over there a lot, is a dictator that gets in and holds power forever, right? And so he's done a lot of good things. He's united people. He got a new flag. You know, we see in America this, I'll just say Marxist, this way of pitting people against each other deliberately. That wouldn't work there. That needed healing big
mm,
time. So a new flag, new anthem, the Hutu and the Tutsi, which really combated each other and led to the worst genocide outside of what happened in World War II. 900,000 people were killed in 90 days there. And the retribution afterwards was awful. But it needed healing. And so arguably, even though he's a bit of a dictator, and you can't knock the guy publicly. If you criticize him, you're probably going to disappear. Uh,
mm.
we're not used to that here. But he really needed to unite and bring people together, and you got to give him credit for that. And
Wow.
bringing a lot of investment into the country. Apparently, it's very clean and modern in Kigali now, and so he's done some good things. But he rules a bit with an iron hand.
Interesting.
Well, she
But she,
appreciates, yeah, the fact that we probably rotate presidents out. You can criticize your president, the freedoms that we have here. She's a very proud new citizen of America.
yeah, I bet. Wow. What a contrast or what a perspective to actually put things into real context for us. God, because this is all I've ever known, America. And people are trying to convince me it's a bad place or a bad idea. And I'm going, well, yeah, perhaps I should travel more. This is my only, this is my only home, but it does seem fundamentally different, perhaps even an extraordinary place, an idea. And these little anecdotes that you're sharing have me going, well, I wish everybody had the same appreciation because it doesn't seem like that right now. I mean, maybe tap into a little bit of your vantage as an entrepreneur and city councilman and the the experience with a wife from Africa in different cultural structure. Now, what's your assessment, getting into fatherhood a little bit, about what this world needs more of or what this world needs less of, and how a father is perhaps, I don't know, dare I say, the critical component to that, or at least a key component to that. What say you?
Parenthood is a blessing. It's challenging, of course. It's a learning experience all along the way. My parents divorced when I was 4, so I lived apart from my dad for the longest time, but still he was there to support financially, and he loved his kids. So I was blessed to have a very involved father, and it helped shape who I am today. He believed in me. Sometimes it takes a person taking a higher step because someone believed in you, whether it's home ownership or taking on a leadership position or something that just pushes you out of your comfort zone. Dads can do that. Dads can believe in their kids, and so my dad was also a wonderful grandparent to my kids, and that helped shape their lives. And we need that help. Even just transportation to sporting events or practices. My dad was there, and gosh, I don't think we could have done it without him. But the importance of fatherhood in shaping our youth. In Aurora, Colorado, as a city council member, youth violence has been an issue. And there are people that look to the city as this magic panacea. We're just going to throw some money at some nonprofits and everything's going to be cured. But we've got there's some wonderful youth in our city, but I'll tell you, I've sounded the alarm over the last few years. We've got some dangerous young people that don't care about their lives or other people's lives,
Mm.
that are willing to shoot and do incredibly reckless things like steal a car with a bunch of other kids in it, drive drunk, and slam broadside into an innocent family. That's happened. So there are kids that literally, they need to be entered into diversion programs and coaching and mentoring, but there's some that need to be just incapacitated from society for a while. And our state legislature has this mandate on a limit to the number of bed spaces that these kids can be in statewide. And I think they just upped it, but it's still not enough. So one dangerous kid comes in, they push another kid out based on who they think should go back into society. But some crimes can be prevented, and lives can be saved by some strong interference in these kids' lives. And that's sort of a worst case. I don't want to scare people about the way our city is, but the reality is we've got some children out there, and you have to wonder: what is it about their upbringing? Are they coming from a two-parent household where a father is instrumental? What parts of our culture may have 70% coming from single parent homes, and how healthy is that? Do those kids then become uh, mentored by police or through the hard way or society? I'm encouraged that we have so many nonprofits and churches that really fill in the gaps and help with kids and various other parts of our city. So many wonderful folks out there with a mission, with a dream, and they make things happen and they better our society. So thank God for the youth mentorship programs out there that are, I think, filling in the gap of some parents who are absent at times.
Well, you were noting that somehow our culture across the country, perhaps, and maybe give us the detailed version of Colorado or Aurora, but the idea that who's there to parent a child? If not the parent, then we relinquish that duty, that responsibility to the state or to the big S, like
Or a
not just
school district, even. Yeah.
or a
Hmm.
school, yeah, teachers, school districts. It's
Hmm.
like, and of course, there's probably majority of people in good faith in those roles, but even if it's in good faith, is that really the best way? Because then you have to create almost a uniform way of raising that that generation, right? You can't specialize or customize or tailor
Mm,
or tend to like a parent could. And
yeah.
then, it just seems like maybe it's better than nothing,
Mm,
but what does it take or what will it take for our society to shift its mindset so that we really revere two parents, fathers, and mothers, of course, too. But this is a fatherhood podcast for a reason. It's like,
mhm.
what's it gonna take out of me as a young dad, an
Mm.
old fresh dad, let's put it that way. But
It
and
sounds
and
like
other, yeah, go ahead.
this is the program in the audience for committed dads that want to commit to being there for their kids, right?
Hmm.
So I'd have to admit that even though my son came from a two-parent household where we did our best, and I talked about the supplemental grandparent help, and
Hmm.
that despite our best efforts, and I think scripturally it says raise a child in the way they should go, and when they grow older, they will not depart from that.
Hmm.
So you just do your best, right? You do your best with whatever intuition or knowledge that you have in the moments over the years. My son, we did that with my son, and sports. A lot of things come to mind right now. How about sports and coaches? Coaches have this unique ability in a child's life to push a kid harder than a teacher can, or even a parent.
Hmm.
I had a couple old school coaches with my kid. Shut the f up and give me 20 push-ups.
Hmm.
A teacher can't say that. And a parent can't do that publicly, right? But a coach can still, hopefully, they
Hmm.
can still push these kids in
Yeah.
sports, for example, which I've believed in, youth sports. I've used my small business to really help supplement some sports programming around our city. But sports teaches life lessons, losing and teamwork and disappointment and highs and lows. But my son went through all of that and still got off track. Came from a middle class family and had whatever he needed. We tried to get to him. And as a father, you want to bless your kids at times. I don't know if there are other fathers out there, but I wanted my son to have a nice car. He turned 16. He saved money, and we contributed, and we probably got him a car that was probably a little too fast, right? In retrospect, got
Hmm.
into some trouble, some triple-digit speeding tickets and things of that sort, right? But probably should have got him a four-cylinder, or a Prius or something, right? But you do your best. They get off track. I remember my son, my wife and I were driving to the mountains to a property, and I got this phone call, and I ignored it because I didn't recognize the number, and they called again and again. So it was a police officer,
Hmm.
and learned that my son had committed this crime with another. He was protecting another kid, and stood up for this kid, and confronted a bully, so to speak, but it involved a firearm and shooting some shots into the air in a neighborhood when this was pre-COVID, and you weren't hearing about this stuff happening around town, or towns. And so we were driving to the mountains, we heard this, and my son was on this course to go to a D1 school and run. And it was a proud moment for his grandpa and her family, and he just ran off track, almost seemingly permanently.
Hmm.
And in my mind, I'm like, well, his ass can stay in jail for, I don't know, to take 3, 4 days, whatever, he can stay there. My wife is like, no, we got to get him out of there. So there were some instances in which you do your best, and then something like that happens. Now, fast forwarding, my son has had multiple interactions with the police. And an issue in Aurora, Colorado, is we're being protested by some folks in which a young man was shot and killed that arguably didn't keep his hands where they needed to be. I've always taught my son, keep your hands right there. And he's always been very respectful to the police and to authority. So he's done well having involvement in a number of different jurisdictions with police officers. And so fast forwarding, here he is today. He's 23 and he's got this wisdom. He's paid the price for some things that he's done, some dumb things, and it depends. I think who you're hanging out with really matters as influence. So sometimes now I'm surprised. I'll ask him a question, or he'll offer input, and it's pure wisdom. It's pure balanced insight. And I guess through this pain that he's gone through, it's produced kind of a refined young man that blows me away at the age of 23 for his interpretation of life.
Mm.
So, despite the best efforts, kids can go astray, right? And so I can't preach that I've done things perfectly, but thank God he's come out of it, and he's been like sober for about a year and a half, and just doing great. Proud of him.
Well, to your point and to your credit, if he didn't have a father figure at all and he ends up getting in a mix, the chances of him staying derailed are high.
Mm-hmm.
So, the best effort, there's still a chance, but there's even a better chance that they're going to get back on track if they've got a father figure like yourself. And I think it just gives us, you think about this is timeless. The young, youthful generation is the future. They are the future leaders of our society. And I just wonder about the quality and the conviction of their leadership abilities when, another 20 years goes by and we pass the torch. Are they set up for success right now at large? Or are there aspects of their mindset, their behaviors, their habits that are going to potentially ripple through society, right? And I'm a new dad, so I'm hypersensitive to all this stuff, and I'm wondering, I'm watching, say something on the news or scrolling through some interesting information on various platforms, and I'm like, man, if that keeps up, that's not good. And then what is there to do so that my child doesn't get caught up in that, and instead, I set him up for success? And I mean, there seems to be a degree of a lack of work ethic and a greater degree of entitlement, and this notion that the world owes people something, just because maybe you've been wronged historically and now you think you're owed something because of that. And just what else do you see out there, or maybe name what you see out there as the potential pitfalls of the younger generation right now, that as a father with a 23 to 25-year-old, you're going, well, these are my concerns from a macro perspective. And if, with that in mind, I'm listening as a new dad, like, how can I then mitigate those? And then we'll get to what we might set them up with in contrast. But what do you see as those pitfalls right now of the young generation?
Interesting. I was visiting this pipe fitters union to gain their support, and they have this prominent sign when you walk in, and I can't quote it verbatim, but essentially it said, the younger generation really cannot appreciate the bitter hardships that those who came before us, they've really laid the groundwork with and for. The conveniences now and the amenities that we have now. What will AI do?
Mm-hmm.
The debate of, should I use AI to do my homework? Well, it's a tool, right? Or maybe kids need to think harder for themselves and formulate language and sentences and paragraphs on their own. Interesting debate there. So you mentioned entitlement, work ethic. Wow. I hire young people. Sometimes we'll start them out as a busser, a bus boy or a bus girl, and at 16, 17, and then when they become 18, seeing the flow of a restaurant and learning the menu, they often become great servers on their own, and it's a great stepping stone job as a student, and they can make great money. But yeah, just being able to receive criticism, being able to be coachable, I think is huge for kids. Maybe sports helps with that. Being defensive is going to slow kids down, I think. But yeah, I suppose generation to generation has complained about the younger generation, right? And they'll
Yes.
never appreciate this, they'll never appreciate that. But maybe they'll surprise us. Maybe they'll blow our minds with solutions to things and put the pieces together.
No, I love thank you for kind of just reminding me that there's still a positive side to this, of course. And
Hopefully, yes.
these are broad brushstrokes that I'm painting with right now, but it does have me a little concerned that if you could extrapolate that working its way throughout all of the youthful generation, you know, the ripple effect and the trajectory, not good. So how do we counteract it a bit?
Mm.
I think maybe just the reality of the world will calibrate it for them, and then for us, perhaps. To your point, it's like they're going to either learn the hard way early or the hard way down the road, and they'll have to adjust. Otherwise, uh, it's not like they won't exist, but it's hard to exist if you don't begin operating better, if you will. Just a quick side note on AI. I saw this post where a lot of kids are relying on AI, right, to do their own homework or to write their papers, and of course, but funny enough, professors and teachers are using AI to grade and take that burden off of themselves. So now you just have machines creating content and then machines evaluating or grading that content, and then it's like, what is happening with
Right.
the exchange of criticism and actual the value of processing, tussling with information and being overwhelmed by it and trying to distill it into something useful and meaningful, and then packaging it up into a thoughtful rhythm that's, in line with maybe your goal for the effort, and who actually is going to consume it. So being audience minded, like none of that tussle is being learned by the student. And then funny enough, apparently teachers are sick and tired of doing the heavy lifting and reading all of it, and they're using the tool as well.
Interesting. That fresh look upon new ideas. You think, putting a cell phone or a smartphone in our hands or AI in our hands versus someone under the age of 10 years of age, their perspective and the way they can harness it may not be something we could even consider. They might have this fresh perspective on utilizing it and making the world a better place, or making money or a career. It's a tool, right? It's leveraging a new tool in a way that probably challenges our thinking. But how about energy? When my mom was growing up, boy, they had to have a wood fire, wood burning stoves and heat water on the stove, and we just flip on a switch and there's energy. Now AI is going to push that demand incredibly, and it's something we're dealing with in the state of Colorado or Aurora. We've data centers coming into my ward. And by the way, I'm just so honored, and it's such a blessing to be able to represent my city on city council, my ward. It's the only ward that has data centers, the only energy producing ward. It's to the northeast. Of the 6 wards, it's larger than all other 5 wards combined. It's defense, it's manufacturing, warehousing, transportation, space exploration at the spaceport. It's new neighborhoods. It's so fascinating and such an honor, but we will probably have a total of 10 data centers in the next 5 years. So is there power for that? One thing we wrestle with and recognize, we have to be realistic. There is not an energy transition happening in America. There is an energy expansion taking place, right? And so these data centers are going to push it, the need, and we've got to figure it out. We've got to figure out, in my view, a plethora of energy sources, right? Fine, solar, wind, fine, but let's keep a broad portfolio of energy needs. So how does that relate to kids? I mean, they have to be realistic and appreciate where that energy comes from, what it takes. There's probably some great jobs in there somewhere, but you look at some other countries like Germany and recently Spain, Great Britain, they can't produce the electricity to sustain their business. And China's rapidly producing coal-fired plants and nuclear plants, and at a much higher rate than we are. A couple of countries have put all their eggs in the basket of green energy and have paid the price. We should have a more holistic look on that. And how does that affect our youth?
Yeah, we'll see, I suppose. But I can, again, you can extrapolate What happens if you corner yourself into only one path of energy production? And just like anything, diversify your income streams, diversify where you put money, diversify where you count on getting your food.
It's life. If
It's
you look
life.
at, I've seen some graphs in which you look at India and China and the amount of energy they're able to supply, life expectancy follows it, right?
Mm,
So if we somehow go backwards in this country with respect to energy, I think it's going to provide less opportunity for our youth. We have to be on the forefront of supplying it in a clean, sustainable way, of course,
yes,
but it's
indeed.
got to be abundant and cheap and reliable.
Absolutely. And how rooted in our culture energy is. Let's just think about uh, the cost of energy affects the cost of every product and service we ever consume.
Mhm.
And so if you get the root component of consumer costs reduced because of diversification, and it just seems to make so much sense to do it this way, even though certain administrations or perspectives want to just narrow in on stuff and shove the old stuff out. And I think right now we're in a good place, but it'll be interesting to see over the next 20 to 30 years what happens, and then how does the next generation respond to that and mitigate risks and seize opportunities, as you said, with jobs. And so maybe just raising adaptable, resilient kids is the only thing we can really do. So what did that mean for your two kiddos, raising them? And I almost want to go back to the beginning when Chantal and you are thinking about, all right, we got each other in person. Here we are. And were you in Aurora at that time? I was trying to think about.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. I had bought a house before she got here, so I had that
so
ready.
you're like, we're gonna raise a family, and we're excited and we're scared. And so, what were the early days of fatherhood, pre-fatherhood? What were they like for you, and even for Chantal? And then, did you have a couple key things that you wanted to impart on your kids? Did you talk that out? Did you just wing it? Did you just trust God in the process? I mean, how did it go for you all early on?
Good question. I suppose, when you get married, you want to bond with your wife in life and have commonalities, right? You watch certain shows together. You have hopefully like-minded affinities for travel or whatever the case might be. But I remember those early formative years. You're playing baby genius, baby Einstein, or whatever the case might be, trying to grow their vocabulary. I remember reading to my kids a lot. Because my mom read to me, and I felt that was important for expanding not only vocabulary but your outlook of the world. But just being there and going to the park and activities, those formative years obviously are critical. You're there,
Mhm.
and I think later on, and this thought occurred to me: accountability, being able to be coachable, like we said. I remember I had this one boss that I worked for in fine dining. He was a large man from Holland, a Dutch guy that had a big handlebar mustache. And back then, he probably smoked at least a pack of filterless Camels a night when we were working in the fine
Wow.
dining industry. He'd drink a couple bottles of Chardonnay and have several vodka tonics. He was a very difficult man to work for, but extremely knowledgeable and talented in what he did. And at the age of 19, I remember walking in, and we wore white shirts and a bow tie, and I was an assistant wait person. The waiters cooked tableside and had to know an extensive wine list. And he was walking by in a hurry and he saw my wrinkled white shirt and he said, "Well, hey, next time, iron your shirt before you come to work." So what did I say? I created this excuse in the moment that, oh, I was wearing this leather jacket throughout the day running errands and I got to work and my shirt was wrinkled. And he looked at me and he said, "Come here." And he took me to this little beer cooler and shut the door and got a few inches from my face and reminded me that for 30 something years he's been wearing a dress shirt, and don't ever bullshit me like that again, and just gave it to me and left me as a 19-year-old in tears. I mean, he just, and I needed it. I'd never been in I suppose the military might teach that to people, but he gave me a needed ass chewing and reminded me that it's better to just say, okay, sir, rather than bullshit somebody. And so I learned the hard way about personal accountability and responsibility and being coachable. So that's something I've taught to my kids, and I think our newer generation that I've hired isn't they tend to make some excuses, So whatever it takes in parenthood, I think to get to that accountability factor, the coachability, their self reflection, it can whatever workforce you're going into, that's important.
Hmm. Right. And yeah, I can feel myself thinking through a few scenarios where someone calls you out and you want to make excuses and you realize that's just exacerbating the problem.
Right.
And the most integrous thing to do is, as you said, yes, sir, I hear you. Will do. That's it.
And that's over,
And then it's
and you
over.
just move on, right?
Yes. Of
It's like
course, you have to then do the thing the right way next
right.
to show integrity and to really complete the process in that moment. But you know, that's all we're actually hoping for from each other as humans is right. It's like, Steve, hey, I noticed something. I want to
Mhm.
give you feedback and not make it a big thing. Like, I don't know, feedback in our culture even. And I'm in businesses all over the place who are trying to figure
Mhm.
out
Hmm.
tactically, strategically, what's the nature of feedback. And everyone's a little timid to give each other feedback, especially, of course, negative feedback. And then there's just so much urgency, so much pressure that you rarely make time for positive feedback. You just keep going. And I just wonder,
Hmm.
what is that actually because there isn't true accountability in our culture at the level that it could be, or what explains that? What's the human situation where we don't really know, we don't treat feedback with like the reverence it really is, because how else do we sharpen and grow and pursue perfection without actually getting feedback?
Interesting. I had a little work meeting this morning, right? So I'm not a huge fan of meetings, but they are appropriate at times. And I had one this morning at my workplace, and I started off with the exercise of a strength centered compliment that
Hmm.
I had learned from a consultant a long time ago. This wonderful lady. So we're sort of gathered in a type of circle and sitting around the room, and I say a compliment to the person on my right, and they simply say thank you. And then they repeat that process of a compliment to the next person, and the next person should really only say thank you. And it goes around the room, and it's type of icebreaker. And by the time it got back to me, I almost felt like saying, "Ah, oh, you can skip me," But it's almost weird, and it's a unique feeling, a type of feedback. To receive a compliment can actually uh, be uncomfortable for some people. Oh, you don't really mean that, or whatever the case might be. But I thought it was a powerful exercise. I've used it a number of times. But feedback, positive or negative, we like to get on Yelp or Google these days and blast somebody,
Yes.
right, without going to the manager and saying, "Hey, I think you should know this about your business." But yeah, feedback in this day and age is unique.
Yeah, that's interesting. So giving our kids feedback early on and almost, you said learn the hard way. You had to learn the hard way with that guy who was ripping cigs and throwing down Chardonnay and all that. It's like, but is there any other way to actually learn than the hard way?
Mm. But that's a great question. I've had to learn the hard way, and I still do. I think I still
Yeah.
shoulda, coulda done this better. Why didn't I eliminate that? And it's a lifelong process, right? And
Yep. Yep. I'm now kind of laughing. Like, there's really no other way to learn than the hard way. You don't really learn any other way.
we could, I suppose, count the costs. This one mentor used to say, I mean, he's like a pastor in a church, like, count the cost. And we ignore that at times.
Right. Yeah, you can do a little math up front, but it almost takes that firsthand visceral experience for you to go, oh, that's what that decision yields, and now I'm going to do it differently, in the future. Take me back a little bit, early days being a father. who were your guiding mentors? I'm thinking of your pops, and rest in peace to him. But maybe what did he do well that you were going, I'm gonna emulate that, or maybe something you're like, I'm gonna do it a little differently. And then who else was in the mix in your realm? Maybe you knew them firsthand. Maybe it was just historical characters that had you going, that's the kind of dad I want to be. I think. Who are those people?
My mom has been divorced, I think, and remarried 5 or 6 times. Twice to my dad, and there were a
Mm,
number of stepdads along the way. And so, as a young person, including my brother Aaron, who we mentioned earlier, and my sister Rachel, growing up in that environment where your mom is becoming divorced, it's damaging.
mm,
It's a type of trauma, right? And a certain loss along the way. And what does that foster? Lack of trust or instability. So I think, having recognized that, I wanted my son to have a stable household. I look Sometimes I think of my grandfather who lived in Wisconsin. He was a farmer and a carpenter, worked with his hands. He even trapped beaver and made a lot of money, believe it or not, and was this resourceful guy.
mm.
And ended up with a motorhome, retiring, and loved to travel the United States. But I regret that as a young boy, kind of being jerked around and with these divorces, and that I didn't get to spend more time with my grandfather, because he just knew the worldly ways and the arts of building and various things like that. So I think you do long to experience things that are manly, or solutions to life. And I just, again, I think of my grandfather, my father, and you recognize your own limitations and what you can provide in wisdom or advice to a young person. And you just, let's explore life together. Let's go on this camping trip. Let me be there for you when you have basketball games and track meets. And so, yeah, I think, and we need grace, right? Nobody's perfect. No parent is perfect. And I think, when it comes time for Father's Day, you get those nice cards, and there are some nice words in those cards for my kids. And uh, yeah, it's you just do your best, right? You do your best.
Do your best. So maybe looking, I was taking you early in your days and looking forward. What were you anticipating going the opposite direction today? Looking back, what do you feel like you did really well? What were the characteristics that you extracted or brought forth out of your kids that you're really proud of? And you know, in what realms were there, positive marks that you want to give a little
There's
nod to?
a little story. I remember I was involved in this church, and this day, it was probably a Saturday, and it was this play practice. And this church put on this massive programs with like live camels and various things, and very elaborate. And so I had a part in the play, and we were practicing, and then my son was with me. It was just he and I, and we went to a McDonald's. And this was so long ago that I was actually reading a newspaper, flipping through a newspaper, while my son played in the McPlay place, right, running around up and down through tunnels, and with this little Hispanic girl. I could hear her speaking Spanish, and the mother was not too far away, and I'd glance at her, and we'd smile at each other, that it's great that our kids are playing and having a great time. And so when we left, we're driving down the road, and my probably 5-year-old son says, "Dad, can I have a play date with her someday?" And I go, "Yeah, sure. Did you get her name?" And I'm thinking, well, I want my son to introduce himself. And she goes, well, yeah, Dad. She said her name was No Comprendo. And so
Oh,
you just, so you teach them to be mannerly. You want them to have positive interpersonal communication in their lives. And so I guess that in that little moment, I had trained him to get a name from someone, to introduce himself. So little No Comprendo. We never got her phone number, but you teach respect. And I think I was thinking when you were asking the question, just being present in your child's life as much as possible, whatever their interests are, right? Their interests are all over the board, right? And it's amazing if you have 2 or 3 kids, they're different. They have these unique differences and interests and abilities and talents. And so you align yourself being present as a father
Mm.
in their life, whatever that is. If they want to play the violin or they're into video games or and some tough love. Speaking of video games, my son got addicted to video games when he was, I think, in 7th or 8th grade. Took my dad's credit card without us knowing and was able to purchase these higher levels, right? And these higher skills or something within the video game. So it just became a huge problem and we couldn't throttle it. It was so I said, look, I'll either sell the video game or I could take a sledgehammer to it. What do you want me to do?
Mm.
And he goes, take a sledgehammer to it. So I do have a video on YouTube somewhere of me taking a sledgehammer to a PlayStation a long time ago, but it was at that point. And I probably could have had better parenting along the way, but it got into a full-fledged addiction, which was affecting his schoolwork and his social skills, I think. So was that a proud moment? I'm not sure. The lighting wasn't very good with the sledgehammer on the video.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
It happened. It happened.
Yeah. Those are those tough things. I'm trying to think about what my parents had to do that was just like really, I just put them in that, I backed them into the corner and they had no choice, so to speak, have you told him that story recently or reminded him of that story? Have you?
He brought it up a few years ago and said that his friends couldn't believe that I would actually do it. And I think he pointed out the video to them. But yeah, we'd probably laugh about it now.
Yeah.
Now he has a video game again, of course, but he goes back and forth and he has balance.
Yep.
For sure.
Thinking back now, again, we're still at 23, 25, the present day. And this is not the game to play all the time. Like, what could I have done differently is not always that useful. But for the sake of, some good faith, my direction, what would you do differently if you could?
Wow, that's a darn good question. We took this backpacking trip into the Flat Tops Wilderness area with a dog and backpacked and put on a whole bunch of miles. We did it a little too early in June where there was still snowfall at those highest levels. But man, things like that you just will never regret, right? And I wish I would have done more outdoorsy stuff. I did teach him how to shoot and go bird hunting and fish a bit. But his realm was really sports, and that's what I supported him in. But a little more outdoors, I think, with him to shape him and teach him to learn how to use some tools. Like I know some basic carpentry and plumbing and skills, and just slowing down and saying, "Hey, come over here. I want you to learn how to lay this tile here or frame this 90-degree angle in the room." Using a 3-4-5 triangle or something,
Right.
So there's some things I wish I would have taught him. And we've had some amazing fishing experiences on a charter boat, caught a shark and just fantastic memories like that. But for me, getting outdoors, there's life though, right? Life is there. You got to earn an income
Yes,
and
indeed.
take on other projects. But
Yeah, and gosh, hearing your answer just has me realize like, our duty. It's not so much what would I do differently as though you can change that, or I can't maybe do what you should have done even, but what I can do is provide my guy as much experience as possible, variety and depth of experience. That's what I should do, if I'm hearing you correctly, in a sense, and giving them the greatest understanding of life in the world around them. And I was thinking about what the language development of my little guy Leo right now. We're talking in front of him, of course, like just being humans. We're reading to him. He's also being so adorable where right before bedtime or nap time, he's not manipulating us yet, I don't believe, but he's like, book, 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 right? He's like, I
oh,
don't want to
good,
go to bed, book, book, book.
good.
Right. But then he'll just flip through these books and just he'll literally open the book and sit. I had from was this last night, I believe. He just opens this book and he's like, he's just looking at these pictures and just a few words, right? It's still a simple book. He's just pondering this book, and then he would turn the page. Like he's actually reading these books on his own. And then
That's awesome.
he saw, there's this book, F for Farm is the name of the book. It's the alphabet, one big word per letter, but then there's all these images. And then he was like making noises based on little things he saw, the
Wow.
cow and the chicken. I'm like, you are reading the book in your own way. But in this place where we're at right now, I'm also realizing there's some really great value in telling him how I'm thinking about things and telling him what I'm doing and the steps. Like even the trash we have, you step on the little
Yeah,
foot
yeah.
pedal, the trash opens. I'm like, all right, you got to step on it, and then that's where the trash goes. Everything's dirty and icky. And the lid, this is I'm saying what it is. Like there's a lid in here. There's a spring and a lever and there's these components and blah, blah, blah. So I'm kind of like walking him through. I'm not just saying, hey, let's go sweep. It's like, let's open the closet door. So I'm being really explicit about things and labeling them and naming them, and then even process. And I'm noticing that's helping him go, oh, yeah, because the next time we do it, he's just like, boom, boom, boom. So it's kind of fun to help.
Sponges.
Indeed. And like, what is our role is to help them. Human beings are sense-making creatures, and perhaps our role and opportunity as parents is to help them make sense of the world and to reveal to them what they're good at, or to kind of not to force things, but we're on the lookout. I was just thinking about, as you said, sports and talents and interests. you know, right now, I'm just observing, like, oh, what is he like? He's throwing left-handed and right-handed. Maybe he's ambidextrous.
Mhm.
He likes all sorts of ball sports, and he loves playing with the water. And I'm like, well, what are these things meaning? And one day, something will crystallize into like a behavior or a skill or an interest. And I'm like, all right, now I got to
Yeah.
go help him explore that.
Later on in life, it probably won't surprise you where he's at based on those initial interests that were showing themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, we had him yesterday. We took a drive, being Memorial Day. We took a drive listening to a ton of, you know, America celebration music and Lee Green what's Lee Greenwood?
Lee Greenwood.
Like on repeat. My wife's like, "Can we not play that?" I'm like, "No, just two more rounds of this." So,
Yeah.
but we're up in the woods by Bailey, if you know Bailey,
Yeah, a
cruising
little
through
bit.
the woods, and there's Leo following me up this hillside. He's pretty sturdy these days, and he's got his balance, but he's like hiking where the slope it wasn't terrible, but now he's got to modify his weight and lean forward, but still stand up. And he just followed us up the hillside, and just without even really doing anything, we were showing him how to, hike technically, but just how to work himself locomotion through time and
Mhm.
space. It's like
That's cool.
that was so fun to watch him. We're both, Mackenzie and I are like, he's hiking and leaning, and you saw him kind of calibrating his body weight and so forth. Like, man, this is such a treat to be his dad and
So cool.
watch him just become alive.
You remind me of a story. Uh, I wish I had a couple dirt bikes now. I outfitted my son and my daughter with dirt bikes, and we would ride some forest trails. And when I think he was about 9, when he got like a TTR 90 Yamaha, I remember he came upon a grouse, and the grouse must have been protecting a nest, but it came up, flew up into his chest and face. I wish I would have had it on video. But those father-son moments in the woods, riding dirt bikes in the Rampart Range and
Yes.
through trails to a small town where we can get a pizza. Fantastic memories. But I bought and sold some dirt bikes, some little teeny kids mini bikes and dirt bikes, like a Honda 50 that would hold its value. And so I'd buy them and I'd fix them up a little bit and I'd sell them to typically a man, right? A dad. He'd come to my house. We'd look at the dirt bike together and run it, and he'd drive it up the street and come back. And I realized in those sales, I was not selling a piece of machinery really.
Mm.
I was selling a good time between a father and a child, right? I knew by talking to this dad that he was getting this little dirt bike, no matter the size, to create memorable moments with his son. And then he could charge a little bit more money because that's why they were so long.
That's great. Now I've been journaling a decent amount. I'll throw a note to myself in my iPhone when I'm struck by things, just fatherhood stuff, leadership stuff, the world at large. And I was kind of pondering, like, isn't it critical to teach, if there's anything critical, it's to teach my son how to have a good time. Meaning, like, no one's gonna make life enjoyable for you. And there will be bored times, and there will be times where you're lured by, say, social media, and you know, you won't want to work, but you have to, and all these, but to choose to have a good time with our life, which includes like fishing, deep sea fishing and dirt biking, and but even
Mhm.
just to have a positive attitude, I need to show him that it's up to us and what
Mm.
it involves to constantly make the most of things, to not neglect this one life in a sense. So, these creating these unique experiences and showing him what it's like to take agency over our lives and to do something playful with it. Like,
Mm.
is that is that all it is? Is that the trick? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's your
Yeah,
reaction?
I think you bring up a good point in that they will watch us very closely, right, and emulate us and attitude, right? Our response to life's situations, whether it's cursing and getting all frustrated, or they'll probably emulate that. Or my wife is like an angel most of the time, right? She doesn't swear, and um, very accepting of what comes our way, and not freaking out. So yeah, they will watch us very closely. They will mimic us, and so I think that's an opportunity to help shape their response to the world, to have a good time, to be optimistic and but realistic, of course. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, right. So I'm thinking managing time here, and I have maybe third to last question, I think it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Third to last question. What kind of political trajectory is Steve Sundberg on? Are you visualizing yourself in 10 years, 5 years in different capacities, still serving Aurora, perhaps a more macro role? I mean, what's the journey looking like?
Well, I see some folks in my business that achieve retirement, and I look at them. I go, "Well, that's really commendable. You've worked and now you've retired. You've got these options in your life." So I hope to get there one day, but there's work to do. Aurora, Colorado, is a city worth fighting for. 404,000 people. We have the opportunity to do things differently than some other cities in our state, uh, where we don't want to implement certain policies that I think have been harmful. So, I'm running again for another 4-year term, and I want to do that. And beyond that, I don't know. I've had a few people say to me that being the mayor of Aurora, Colorado, would be a good idea. I think it would be a challenge, but an incredible honor to be the mayor of this city. Maybe I'll pursue that one day. I really appreciate community coming together. It's one of the most important things that I rejoice in seeing people come together in our community. And of course, in Aurora, we boast that we are the most diverse city in the state. 160 languages spoken, something like that. But I don't really have aspirations for higher office. A lot of work that we do as city council members is behind the scenes on a daily basis, helping people, matching people with resources, helping to solve problems, whether it's speeding or feral animals, or you name it, traffic issues. Uh, so you're serving people behind the scenes, and I do take pleasure in that. And I feel by nature I'm a connector. If I see someone with a certain skill or attribute, and then someone else has a need, I like to bring people together.
Hmm.
Certain community resources, matching folks up. But I don't know what the future holds. Well, I just want to serve my city, and it's a great honor. I meet a lot of big thinkers, people with big ideas, whether it's entertainment or development. Uh, that's one thing I enjoy doing, is meeting all these incredible people.
Yeah, and Aurora, as you said, its proximity to the airport, its position in the metro area. I like the
There's
diversity. Doesn't
yeah,
that doesn't surprise me. I was, there's got to be, I've seen you at a few different, what look like different festivals and gatherings where you could tell it's just a complete multicultural community that Aurora is. I suppose, what a treat to be inspired by all those people too, the intellectuals and the businesses, and then just people from all walks of life. What a rich it's been 4 years you've been in this.
almost 4 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, campaigning is quite the adventure. I'll go, I'm in kind of a fundraising stage,
Mm.
and going to meetings, invites to groups, and then knocking on doors. I think in a couple of weeks here, I'll be probably knocking on thousands of doors. And I have my little iPad and a walkbook, and I'll knock on a person's door and ask them how things are going in Aurora and what their concerns are, and ask for their vote again if I've earned it.
And you're doing that for sure firsthand, you knocking on doors. And do you have a team of
Typically,
people who are helping you?
yeah, good point. Sometimes there's volunteers for sure. That a little team of volunteers that can go out and help. But and God bless them. I think that's helpful. But I think it's really impactful when someone opens the door and there's the candidate there, and they can engage them, and that's an adventure. You'll meet kind people and wonderful people and inquisitive people, and there's a few jerks along the way that want to give you a piece of their mind for even stepping foot onto their driveway, right?
Of course. And I mean,
Yeah.
you've got a great demeanor and a charm to you and so forth. I'm sure you handle those well, but how do you handle that as a politician? You're leaning into this role. You're trying to serve people, but some people are stiff arming you. Just this is happening across, say, many different capacities of many different lives. People, getting, you know, chewed out by your fellow human being. How do you maintain dignity and composure and poise when that's happening? Is there a process you go through in your mind, or are you naturally this way at
Question.
this point in your life?
Good question. You know what drove me in the first place? Our city council was really on this precipice of, it could have gone either way, this edge of, not to sound political, but I'm just going to say it. Do we want to become Portland, Oregon, Seattle? We had a council that wanted to say, here, Denver, hold my beer. I'm going to show you the most socialistic policies. And then we could have gone a different way. So I didn't want my city to become San Francisco. So it motivated me. Though I guess the importance of it helps temper the bad attitudes that you might encounter. I remember came across some people that were sitting up at the end, a driveway, a tall driveway, sitting in their lawn chairs, and they saw me coming by, and they just said, "Just keep walking." I go, "Okay, well, running for city council, I don't care, just keep walking." And their dog came down and started sniffing around my legs, and I said something pleasant to them, and they were grumpy, and I walked away, and I said, "Well, at least the dog's friendly."
Right.
But normally I'm going to hold my tongue, right? And I've been cussed out, and people have no soliciting signs, and you have to honor that. And I might still drop some literature, but certainly I'm not going to ring their doorbell. I tried it. A roofing salesman told me I should still do it, and I got cussed out, so I'll never do that again. But it's an adventure.
No
You do
doubt.
meet,
And you got to
yeah.
be relentless and graceful. And I mean, the roofing business, those people,
Oh
you got to
boy,
have thick skin. You know what I mean?
mm, I couldn't
Amongst,
do it. I don't think I could do that.
yeah, if
Nope,
you're,
they knock whether or not there's a no soliciting sign, right? Then
yeah, yeah. That's it's always impressive to watch them either get crushed or to handle that situation, because you can watch stuff like that on Instagram or YouTube, and you're just like, damn, that's a grind. Okay, second to last question here. For those hopefully not just listening to this, but watching this, they see this epic beard? How do you get a beard with such vigor and just fortitude? Is there any
Oh,
tips or tricks over the years?
that's kind of you. Let's see. My mustache used to be a lot longer. My
Yeah.
beard used to be down to here. And I've got, and I wanted this wavy. I was seeing a guy with a beard one time. He just had waves in him. Like, I wanted that beard. I pretty much achieved it. But then I start looking like a moonshine runner in the backwoods if I get a little too long. But, if someone's starting a beard, you got to commit to it. And certain hairs in the beard are going to grow more slowly than others.
Mhm.
So trimming your beard back regularly will allow the slower hairs to catch up with the longer hairs. There's a number of products that work well out there. If I want some good sheen in my beard, in the ethnic aisle of Walgreens, there's like a castor oil and some different aromas, and that brings an incredible sheen in addition to like a wax or, excuse me, like a balm.
Yeah, yeah.
A barber told me one time taking conditioner, leaving a little like pea size of a high quality, expensive conditioner in your beard and not rinsing it out, and then taking a comb and a hair dryer will open up the follicles in your beard and allow the beard hairs to absorb more of those nutrients. So there's little tricks along the way. I haven't spent a whole lot of time on it, but it's a struggle. We can relate to each other, those with beards, and
Yes, indeed.
and yeah.
I go from, hardy beard down to lean and clean and mean, and I'm always tussling between the two. So thanks for the beard wisdom. Okay, final question. Get a little bit more dialed in on fatherhood with this final thought, and I just want to invite you to take some time as you're about to answer this. Think about what this really means and put yourself in this scenario where, let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to think, Luke, Livia, they're in their 70s someday. They're sitting around a campfire, talking, reminiscing, sharing tales of the man that their father hopefully is. You're still alive, perhaps. Maybe you've moved on to the next realm. But the point is, you're not necessarily in the space with them. They're sitting there honoring who you are, who you were, and telling tales of that character. You're known for three things. You get to be known for three things. What three things do you hope you're known for as your
With
kids
my
sit around a
kids,
campfire reminiscing?
I think fun, present, and supportive.
Mm,
Yeah, my kids and I, we have some laughs together. We're sharing. When I waste my time mindlessly scrolling on Instagram, we'll share some reels with each other when I should be reading a book. But I want to have a good time with my kids,
mm,
and I want to be there for them in challenging situations in life, and yeah, and support them.
yeah. So tell me a little bit about what does support look like now that you've got kiddos in their young adulthood? They're technically equipped with what they need to go thrive. And what's support looking like these days?
There's an independence part of them, but last night my daughter has discovered vinyl. Now she's starting to build a little vinyl collection. Got a record player,
Okay.
and so she wanted to have me mount this shelf in a room where it says "now playing." It's going to hold the record, the album, that's now playing.
Mm,
And I was tired, and I said, but just being there, helping her in the moment. We're working with some tools and a level and a drill, and of course, every time I'm in her room, I accidentally knock something over in her very precisely decorated room, and she calls that a dad tax. A dad's knocking something. It's the price you pay for have your dad help out. But just helping when they need it, coming to their aid, and yeah,
so we had fun, supportive. What was the middle one or the third one? I'm
present, present,
present.
being present.
How,
Yeah.
I mean, how do we do that in this day and age? I'll give you a little bit of my world. I'm building my business. I'm working on managing some strategic partnerships that put me on different assignments. I'm working on finding direct opportunities with clients,
Mm.
trying to take care of myself. Uh, I'm watching I'm watching the world, sometimes seemingly fall apart, sometimes, you know, trying to spend quality time with my wife, and yet I know how critical it is to be present with my little one. I mean, what do we do in this day and age to be present? How do we manage that? Is it a discipline? Is it a muscle we build? Is it creating certain, you know, certain environmental factors so that, you know, you're setting your phone aside? I mean, how are you
Mm.
honoring presence?
Well, it's different now that my kids are at that age where they could be out of the house almost. But they choose. Cost of living is so high. People are living in the same household more often. I think it's about priority, and
Mm,
can you incorporate a young person when it's appropriate? You know, you don't want to take your son to work at certain times, right? But yeah, I guess it's just that priority. I don't want to have regrets. You know, I don't want to look back in life and God dang it, I screwed that up. And boy, there's something there. Dave, I don't know how anybody could be that man that walks away from their kids, that has kids and they're not involved in their life. Who is that person? What's going through their mind to allow that to happen? To me, that would create the largest amount of regret
mhm,
ever. And I couldn't live with myself. So maybe it's the example my dad gave me about trying, even though there was a distance or at times, just trying to be there for me, supporting me. But who are these deadbeat dads? You know, I don't respect those people. I mean, I encounter that from time to time as an employer. You'll get this certified letter in the mail saying, okay, we're going to garnish this guy's wages because he hasn't paid child support. Like, come on, dude, be a man, support your kids, at least financially as best you can, and then be there time wise. But I don't want those regrets. And I guess it's about priority.
yeah, well said. And it's clear that you had them high on your priority list. It's apparent, you know, based
You.
on your outcomes, let's put it. But I sense there really is no excuse, although there might be a few explanations for like the small sliver of scenarios where you're like, that makes sense. That's why that dad is not present. That's why that dad is
Mm.
there's perhaps some trauma or who
Mm.
knows, something deep down that would explain it. But it is for me, it sounds like it was for you, truly the ultimate role, the ultimate blessing,
Mm-hmm.
the ultimate opportunity, and I would not change it for the world. It's the best. I
Mm-hmm.
still got to tend to all my other life,
Mm-hmm.
but now I've even thought, you know, it's tough for me to go, say, fly fishing by myself. So no,
Yeah.
I no longer am doing things that I would do by myself. With maybe I don't know, once every few months, I might have some downtime by myself. I still want to go live my life, and but I'm going to now fold him into that. That's going to help me filter and focus how I spend my time, my energy, and
And there's some me time though too that can be important. Is to separate and go do something on your own to sort through your thoughts, clear your mind. We can't deny ourselves those enjoyable moments. Maybe with some guy friends, maybe solo, maybe with the wife, but that's can be healthy too for sure.
indeed. Well, Steve, thanks for your wisdom. Thanks for your friendship. And thanks for your time on Whoa Dad, Go Dad.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you. It's nice to be here.
All right, man. See you on the next one.
Thanks. God bless.
There you have it. You know, I believe the world is calling on us as fathers to step up and be stewards and shepherds of those around us. The times are interesting and they are demanding more out of us than perhaps we once realized. It's because of that that I want to celebrate and honor the ultimate role of fatherhood and set up dads for maximum impact. So thanks for being here. Don't forget to subscribe so you can catch the coming episodes. And above all, share this episode with a father you admire. See you on the next one.
Go dad, here we go now. Oh yeah, the ultimate role.